and welcome. I am Halima Sadia. Today we are starting a new season of our current affair program, Behind the News. As the name suggests, this platform is all about looking at the reasons and factors, overt or covert, that brings out the news that we watch or read. Our quest is to go beyond the opinion and analysis. After all, we know that when a news story surfaces, most of the times what we see is just a small part of submerged iceberg. This is an attempt to unveil the story behind a story. We'll try and explore all the factors that contributed to make a headline in a matter-of-fact way. I'm joined in this program by Mohammad Rizwan. Rizwan spent 24 years in the business of news, research and policy analysis. He worked with several national and international news organizations in Pakistan and the UAE, writing and analyzing stories on politics, South Asian geopolitics and terrorism. Let's start on agenda for the day. State frees Aasia Bibi. Is this change of heart permanent? In a breaking development, Pakistani Christian woman who was on a death row for blasphemy charges and was later acquitted by Supreme Court has been freed from prison and being taken to airport. The details still are sketchy and it is an ongoing development, but let's have a brief look at this saga in the backdrop of furious power that Pakistani clerics has acquired over the years. So I'll come to you, Rizwan. Let's talk about it. Finally, a good news from Pakistan. What do you think led to her release after the kind of violent protest we have on streets after her acquittal?
Yes, it's finally a big relief. A big relief not only for the people across the country in Pakistan, for the minorities, for the communities across the country, but also I would say that it's a relief for the state as well, who was under pressure on two sides, two fronts. That was extreme pressure from the clerics and the religious right wing, which, by the way, they have nurtured and inculcated over the past 70 years. That's a story that tells us that our establishment, our military, rather we have a name for it, that is Mullah Military Alliance. So that alliance has become so strong now that it has, it's really pushing backwards the state, and the state was under tremendous pressure on both fronts, from clerics and from international community as well. Finally, they saw sense in it, and they thought that it would be a great thing, justified of course, to let Aasia Bibi go and let her out of the prison. The thing is that she was acquitted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan. The charges against her, as always, as in most of the cases against minorities in Pakistan and Christians, especially against Christians, were frivolous, and they couldn't be proved in the court. So court had to acquit her, and regardless of the protests.
But this is the decision of the court. So finally, court has
given
given
this decision of the court. But then we saw that there was an agreement, and that was between the state and the clerics. Clerics being one party and the state being another party. And they signed an agreement as an equal partners, saying that Asia's appeal should be heard in the court. It implied in that agreement that Aasia would stay behind bars till her review petition in the Supreme Court will not be decided. But it seems that now the state has decided that they will let Aasia go, and obviously that's a big if, that if they have taken care of all the consequences, all the backlash and blowback which we can expect in these kind of situations.
Usually what happens is that such cases take so long that it is very unfortunate with the family to help. So what do you think, if they are so aggressively on the roads and burning all that kind of own states things, so what do you think that where would they let her go, and if they would let her go, what will be her destination to be at?
Yes, Halima, the details are emerging. It's not very clear because it had to be kept secret, because people could storm the jail, people could gather in protest. Even it's late night it was late night in Pakistan, so they took precautions that when they announce and then when they make it public, they would let her go. They would, and she will be safe. Possibly her destination, as it's emerging up from the news, it's not clear yet, but possibly some country in Europe, maybe Holland. But now the question is that is it some, face saving? Is it something which state wanted to avoid at the moment, and later they will come back to their old tactics? And is the alliance broken or
this
not?
This is what I was going to come to you.
So
that it is basically a mullah military alliance.
Yes.
And what are you suggesting towards that? And is it, if you're suggesting towards that, is it possible? Because basically, if you see from the foundation of Pakistan to the history of Pakistan, so how come we can just suggest that kind of a thing?
It's very, very hard to predict. The most unpredictable thing in this world is probably Pakistani military and Pakistani establishment. The world has learnt the hard way, because they say something one day, they commit to the world that they would be doing these things. We have seen this throughout the time of Afghan wars, the war on terror, everything that followed in, especially in our policy and security policy in the tribal areas, that they go back on their promises. They commit just to, while away the time, to take the pressure off from them, but then they come back to their old ways. So that is the question. That's a big question. At the moment, it seems like always it has, the things look a bit rosy, I would say, because...
Or the expectations are very rosy.
The expectations are rosy because Pakistan is in a very, very tight corner financially. Mm-hmm. They need the world, they need the international community to take them out of this situation. They were banking on their, all-weather friend like China and Saudi Arabia to get them out of this trouble. But they couldn't do that. Those all-weather friends only go till certain limit.
So
they can't go all the way. So they have learned this the hard way, that if they need to live in this world, they will have to gel with the international community, and they will have to come under the international law and the protocols. So this decision, I think, if you see in this backdrop, that would be understandable. But anyway, it's a very good decision.
So related to that, let's come to Islamabad. If we see that Wells is in Islamabad, and what do you think? Will Pakistan be able to deliver what is the expectations from them, or how do you think? Because Trump's administration appointed her as a Deputy Assistant Secretary of State. So what do you think about that?
Alice Wells is a point person on Pakistan, like you said, and she takes care of all the things related to Pakistan and Afghanistan at the moment. Of course, day to day, not the entire policy, which is made by the State Department and the National Security Council in the White House. But she is a very important person. Her feedback is very important. And it's her third visit to Pakistan. Look at the roster of her meetings in Pakistan. She didn't meet foreign minister, which was her preview, but she met finance minister. and she met DGMO, Director General Military Operations. So these two things tell us a lot about why she is in Islamabad. I think she must have given her support and commitment and reassured Pakistan that during their time of this absolute financial crunch in which they are finding very hard to wriggle it out from, the United States can help in different ways, obviously.
What do you think it's on international scenario? This visit indicates so many things, and it is actually pointing out towards certain directions which are multi, like if we see from the Pakistani point of view, it is like standing in a four-way area where you're having too many roads to go in certain directions. So how do you see that?
Yes, it's a very tough situation for Pakistan. But this situation took a long time coming. But Pakistani establishment always knew that this would come to this impasse. The things would come to the head one day. I think that head thing has come. Because apparently when Prime Minister Imran Khan was in Beijing, he was told that he has to work with the international community. China alone cannot get Pakistan out of its problems because the problems are huge and they are multilateral and they are multi-layered as well. So China can only do that so much. So Pakistan has learned that. And now what? I mean, now what they are going to do? They obviously needs international community, and this international community, whether they like it or not, it is basically driven and powered and engined by the United States. You have to talk to Washington on everything. Even if you have to talk to IMF, you have to be on right side of the international community. So that's what they are learning now. And though it's too late to learn, but they are learning the hard way, and they are finding it. They are trying to find a hole from where they could wriggle out of this situation. So the choices for them are very clear. IMF delegation is already in Pakistan. LS Wells' visit coincided with their delegation's visit. They are going to talk about money. Pakistan.
All economy. Right now, around the world, wherever you go, it's all about economy. It's all about money.
That's right.
So
That's
those
right.
countries which are already in a crunch, of course, they are going to be in terrible crunch again.
That's right. And they are going to ask IMF $7 billion. And they also don't want that IMF do not ask them to launch structural reforms, which is not possible. Obviously, they will find it in the talks that it's not possible without structural reform, the money won't come. So that's something which Alice Wells and Finance Minister Asad Umar, they must have talked about. And of course, it also shows that the US, like Secretary Pompeo's visit, they indicated that the US is ready to use their good offices to get the international multilateral donor agencies to get Pakistan out of this situation.
So coming back to USA now, what do you think? Last night was midterm elections, and in House of Commons, we the lower house, we see that Democrats are very, very powerful right now, and they have drastically changed the whole scenario. While on the other hand, if you see the Senate, we see that Republicans are very strong there. So what kind of impact will it leave on President Donald Trump? What is about him?
Yeah, President Trump was, of course, not expecting any big relief from these elections. It was expected that Democrats, they will take the House because their power to rally the voters was immense this time, and their supporters came out in numbers. Rather, it was a referendum on Trump's presidency. This election was being seen as a referendum on Trump's presidency. So the people across the cities in the US and the suburbs as well, they have spoken, and they gave the House, which is 435 seats, by the way, to Democrats. And though it's a slim majority, it's not a sweeping majority, but it's majority nonetheless. They were in minority before. So because of their being in a minority in the House and in the Senate, the Republican Party and the Trump administration, they were almost going scot-free. And
it's very easy for them to take certain decisions.
yeah, it was. Yeah, they were going unchallenged basically, as far as Congress was concerned. The traditional check that the Congress applied on the administration, that was absent because both the houses were controlled by Republicans. Now the major house has been taken over by Democrats, so it will definitely, for Trump, it will become Trump administration. It will become very difficult to pass any legislation through the without any bargaining position, without conceding anything to the Democrats. Now we come to the I word, which is being dreaded, and people don't talk about it. That can it lead to the impeachment of the president? I mean, that's the question which hangs over people's mind, because Democrats couldn't do it because they were not in majority. Now they are. Can they? I think we are very, very far from it. It's a very, very long shot that they will go for impeachment. I mean, if barring some big event which happens and the public pressure becomes so much that they will have to do it, the Democrats won't go that way because of, I think, two reasons. One, they do not have absolute majority. Two, they do not have a majority in Senate. And three, it will be very hard, apart from no president has ever been impeached in America, in the US, because though this provision, this is a constitutional provision, is there, but then they will have to respect the mandate which the president gets from the people of the country. Nixon, he was on the verge of impeachment, he left, he resigned himself, and Clinton just barely, escaped scot-free from the impeachment process because the Senate couldn't agree on his impeachment. So it will be difficult to impeach the president because the Democrats won the House, but it will be very difficult for Trump administration to pursue their agenda of immigration, of the border wall, and maybe on tariffs as well.
So let's talk about Canada and America relation. For that matter, USMCTA is the main thing, which is the reason for that. But if we see the current scenario, political scenario also, is what do you see? What are the changes we expect, and what possibly can happen?
I think Democrats in the United States are very natural allies of Liberal Party in Canada. Obviously, so because their manifesto is the same, their political philosophy is the same, and during Trump administration, the Liberal government in Ottawa and the Conservative government in Washington, that created a lot of friction between the two administrations, Trudeau and Trump. But now, the Democrats in Congress were not in favor of repealing the NAFTA. They always resisted it, but they did not have numbers to, put their say on the table and say that, no, we can't do that. So Trump got his way, Trump administration, and they renegotiated NAFTA and made it into a US-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. Now, That trade agreement, I think that will stay in place because Canada has not lost much from it. Canada has very carefully negotiated this settlement, and they basically retained and got what they wanted. And that was a very laborious and lengthy negotiations that we saw.
And to change something which has just been done, it doesn't make any.
There is no point in repealing that or even asking to repeal, but it will Democrats in Congress. It will definitely start a warming up of relationship between Ottawa and Washington, which were getting frosty during the Trump administration and Trudeau's
So you think
time.
more warmth between both, because Trudeau has that complaint that he was not being.
Yes.
I mean, it was very spectacularly seen that U.S.-Canada relations, and this is our neighboring country, which is very important for us.
Yes,
right?
yeah, we know, Halima, you know that we have all seen that Canada and United States, they have always been a very, very close allies because they are not only their geography is the same, their interests are almost intertwined, and it's very hard to separate their interests, both economic and political and maybe strategic as well. So it was very unprecedented when Trump administration came, and it gave a kind of, the optics were cold shoulder. Optics were not very good. I don't know what they were talking between government to government level. Everything doesn't go public, but the optics of the protocols and all those photo opportunities, they were not really great. And Trump and Trudeau was clearly seen in frozen in their own positions, and they were not warming up to each other. But now that might change.
Please give us your feedback through WhatsApp, Facebook, and go to tagtv.info. We need your feedback to improvise and provide what you want to see. With these words, thank you very much for watching our show today.